We ready?
Ready.
If anybody can't understand me with this mask on, let me know, but I'm going to leave it on until somebody says they don't understand me. Let's call the Monday, November 16th, 2020 meeting of the Dalton City Council to order. Mr. Wall will lead us in the pledge. Flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The agenda is before you. Are there any additions, corrections, deletions? Your motion, we approve it?
Mr. Mayor, there's one item that I would request the Mayor Council make a slight adjustment to, which would be item number 4. I have provided a copy before you that would add the City of Dalton Redevelopment Plan West Walnut Avenue corridor to create tax allocation District 5. Both District 4 and District 5 were covered in the public hearing notices, but we would just ask for the agenda to be amended to add District 5.
I make a motion we approve with that change.
Motion by Ms. Harlan, there's a second. Second. Second by Mr. Wall. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, like sign. Next, under announcement, I'd like to read this announcement, which has been, I think we also have printed copies back there. This is the statement of the City of Dalton Mayor and Council. It is very important that the people of Dalton and the greater Northwest Georgia region realize the COVID-19 pandemic is not over. We all still need to take steps to protect ourselves and others from the virus. These actions include, but are not limited to, wearing masks or facial coverings over the nose and mouth when in public places, keeping a minimum safe distance of 6 feet from other people, avoiding large gatherings, and frequently washing hands and sanitizing surfaces. In late August, this council debated enacting a mask mandate for the City of Dalton. Our discussion determined that the confines of Governor Kemp's executive order allowing local governments to take such action, namely the numerous exceptions that would prevent those measures from being enforced, defeated the purpose of such an order. Instead, we strongly encourage the people of Dalton to wear masks when in public and to maintain their social distance. We're underlying that again tonight. It is very important for public health to wear masks. We did enact a mask mandate for visitors to all city buildings and facilities, and we can continue to uphold that order. And local businesses can require the use of masks on their premises, and we will uphold those requirements as well. We are seeing signs of a resurgence of the virus in our area. We recently received a report on virus testing in our area from the Dale Clinic that indicated high positive rate in our community. Whitfield County is currently one of only 2 dark red counties on the State Department of Health's COVID tracking map, and with more than 970 new cases in the past 2 weeks. We're seeing serious illnesses in our area as a result, with hospitalizations and ICU admissions. This is not a time to let our guard down. This council is getting regular updates on the situation from local and state public health officials, and we will take action if necessary. We do not want to see Dalton, Whitfield County, or the state of Georgia ending up back in a situation where lockdowns are again necessary to stop the virus. The impact of the local and regional economy would be devastating. We're monitoring the situation daily. So please, we urge the people of Dalton to take this seriously and wear your mask, keep your social distancing up. This isn't a political issue. It's about public health and keeping our economic recovery going. Next is the time we allow on the agenda anybody from the public to make a comment on what's on the agenda or anything else in the City of Dalton on your mind. Shannon Beerfield. Hey, good. Yeah, you can just go up there. Yeah, please.
If you don't mind, I made a few notes because I do feel like it's important that I not forget a few things that I've looked into myself. Thank you for your statement on COVID. I do agree with many of those things. By the way, hi, I'm Shannon. Nice to meet you guys. Those were all great, strong recommendations. It is not enough. We just watched our Whitfield County commissioners say no to mask mandates, and they wouldn't even strongly recommend them, while 3/4 of them have been affected by COVID or have gotten COVID themselves, while one of them is in ICU with COVID right now. All right? I don't want to see Dalton make the same mistake. The City of Dalton, we can do better for our citizens. 6 hospitals in the area have asked that we do a mask mandate to help them, especially through the holidays. I think we all know this is going to get worse through Thanksgiving and Christmas with people gathering together. And the least we can do is help our hospitals through that time. They want to save as many lives as they can. And that's to include people who are having heart attacks, people that are getting into car wrecks. Okay, this is not just about COVID. This is about maintaining enough staff and space to treat everybody that needs medical attention. I would be happy to send you guys some links because it would take all day long to sit here and give you the facts and give you numbers. I can give you links to NIH. I can give you links to CDC. I am happy to do that. I am happy to explain those facts to you. What I can tell you is that masks reduce droplets by 80% from the wearer to the outside community. Cloth masks also protect the wearer 50% from the outside droplets. Okay? Now, if we're talking about surgical masks or KN95s, that protection goes up even more. It is that important. We're talking about people's lives. We're talking about their businesses. It's going to help with business. We can operate better. We can get people in, opening their shops, get them in shopping again if everyone would wear a mask. I am very fortunate, just as many of you are that work in government buildings, that where I work, masks are mandated for every employee and for every patient. I feel safe when I'm at work. I feel like I'm protected, the best that I possibly can be during a pandemic. Let's not forget that word. It's a big word. Pandemic. It matters. It's a big deal. We're talking about the world here. And I just want to help protect Dalton. Okay? This is my home. I grew up here. I left, went and served in the military, came home, went back to school here, went on to graduate school, and then came back and lived here again. I love this place. This is my home. It's my community. And I love the people in it. And I want to see us get through this together. And the only way we're going to do that, because what we've been doing so far is not working. We've been strongly urging masks for a long time now, and it is not working. We have to do something different. It's time to change it up and at the very least, mandate masks through the holidays. That's what I ask of you to at least consider. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Is anybody here on Small Business Saturday, the proclamation for this? You are, hit up. If you'll come up front, I'm not going to step down there this time because we're trying to stay apart. This is a proclamation on Small Business Saturday, November 28th, 2020. Whereas the City of Dalton celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. And whereas according to the United States Small Business Administration, there are 31.7 million small businesses in the United States that employ 47.1% of the employees in the private sector. And whereas small businesses reported that they need to see consumer spending return to pre-COVID levels by the end of 2020 in order to stay in business, it would be most helpful to their businesses to have their regulars return and start making purchases again. Whereas 96% of consumers who shop on Small Business Saturday agree that shopping at small, independently owned businesses supports their commitment to making purchases that have a positive social, economic, and environmental impact. And 97% of consumers who shop on Small Business Saturday agree that small businesses are essential to their community. And whereas 95% of consumers who shopped on Small Business Saturday reported the day makes them want to shop or eat at small, independently owned businesses all year long, not just during the holiday season. And whereas the advocacy group, as well as public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed the Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, David Pennington, Mayor of the City of Dalton, Georgia, hereby proclaim November 28th, 2020 as Small Business Saturday, and I urge our citizens to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and throughout the year. Thank y'all for what y'all do. Yeah, thank y'all very much. The minutes are before you from the Mayor and Council meeting from November 2nd, 2020. Are there any additions, corrections, or deletions?
Mr. Mayor, before we proceed, may I just ask that our city attorney just explain just a restriction that we as the city would have under the governor's order about mandating masks on private property?
Fine.
Ms. Harlan, the governor listed a series of restrictions in regards to what a city or county government may do to authorize or mandate masks in their community. The exceptions, I think it's the opinion of council and as city council as well as legal counsel, that the exceptions swallowed the intent of the mask mandate. And so in regards to any health issues, there were age limitations, both on elderly and young people, as well as locations of certain businesses and religious functions where the government could not mandate use of masks. So there were about 12 or so exceptions to that rule, which made it very ineffective.
Ganny, just one more quick question with that from a liability concern, because Shannon, I totally appreciate what you said, and I appreciate the efficacy of masks. I believe in it, all those things. But with the opt-out provision that's in there, if a business chose to opt out, just like right now, businesses choose to have the mask mandate, you know, your Walmarts, your Home Depots, your places like that. If a business chose to use the opt-out wording that's in that legislation, might they then potentially open themselves up to some liability down the road if a mandate is considered reasonable per se?
That would be a risk for the individual businesses. Government did pass, state level government did pass an assumption of risk statute dealing with COVID-19 issues that if you post on the door entrance to the business, that may waive any liability that the business owner may have, but that's not yet been tested by the courts, and so there's always the risk of a suit. Those waivers may be a defense to that, if that's a risk.
Restaurants don't even follow the current guidance set forth by the state board, by the way. They don't.
Minutes are before you. Any additions, corrections, deletions?
Make a motion to approve as written.
Motion by Ms. Harlan. Is there a second? Second. Second by Mr. Goodlett. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. Next, Jason, tell me, are we having a public hearing? Is that what this is about?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, it is.
All right. This public hearing is about the proposed amendment to the City of Dalton 2015 redevelopment plan to create tax allocation district number 4 and City of Dalton redevelopment plan, West Walden Avenue corridor to create tax allocation district number 5.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, thank you. Gary Monjon from Bleakley Advisory Group is back to go over this, the tax allocation district proposals that we mentioned before. This is the required hearing based on the Georgia redevelopment powers laws. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. If you have any trouble understanding me, please let me know and I'll remove the mask, but I will try to get through this with the mask on. What I hope to do in the next 10 or 15 minutes is provide background information to facilitate these two public hearings. As you know, we were here a month ago and gave you our preliminary thoughts regarding the potential of each of these new tax allocation districts that we were asked to investigate. We have since prepared required documents to move these issues forward, which were delivered to the city last week. And now the ball is in the city's court. And as the city council, you may choose at a later time to either approve with amendments or reject these proposed redevelopment plans. This requires, we were required to do two different things. One was to amend the city's 2015 redevelopment plan to enable the creation of tax allocation District 4 at the west bypass, at the north bypass, excuse me, and to also draft a new redevelopment plan to accommodate a fifth proposed tax allocation District number 5 along West Walnut Avenue. And so I'm going to kind of just briefly, before getting into the specifics, just for the benefit of the public, just provide a couple of definitions to help make this move a little more smoothly. Under the Georgia Redevelopment Powers Law, communities may designate redevelopment areas by adopting an approved local plan. And within those redevelopment areas, the city can offer financial incentives to support revitalization. To do that, first, a voter referendum has to pass, which Dalton did in 2014. The incentives that you could offer within these redevelopment areas is commonly called tax increment financing. And locations within redevelopment areas where this can be offered in Georgia are called tax allocation districts. And that's what we're in the process of creating. To qualify as a redevelopment area, you have to show need. There are definitions in the statute that have to be satisfied. And you have to be able to show that the use of tax increment financing is necessary to achieve local objectives for those areas due to such factors as high development costs, demolition costs, market risk, and associated infrastructure deficiencies, et cetera. A tax allocation district is actually a map, which can be the same map as the redevelopment area or a smaller map inside a redevelopment area. Your 2015 redevelopment plan actually had 2 TADs located inside a large redevelopment area. We're considering the possibility of adding a 3rd tax allocation district within that redevelopment area. Or it can be the same geography, which in the case of West Walnut Avenue, the redevelopment area and the TAD are the same geography. Again, a TAD is a map with a specific list of tax parcels. As a city, you have discretion to determine how any tax increment financing could be used for any eligible purpose that's allowed under law. You can be as flexible as the state statute or more specific as a community. The redevelopment plan, which we are proposing to amend as well as a new draft document, does a couple of things. In addition to designating the maps in the district, it contains a forecast of future revenues, outlines city's priorities, and suggests how funds may be used. These plans are forecasts. They're in some cases 30-year forecasts, and it's understood that not all forecasts are achieved, and there's a great deal of flexibility under the statute as these plans move forward. It's important to understand what creating a TAD doesn't do. It doesn't impose a tax increase on any property in the TAD. It doesn't provide abatements to any property within a TAD. It has nothing, absolutely nothing to do with eminent domain or urban renewal. It does not authorize simultaneously city bond issues or any form of spending. Those decisions have to be made later. It does not qualify any specific property within the TAD to receive public funds for any purpose. Again, those decisions are made down the road, nor does it bind the county and school district to participate. Those decisions are made by the county and the school district and will also be made at a later time. And again, just how TADs work, if you were to approve these new TADs as of December 31st, the base for those districts would be set. For as long as the TADs are in effect, the property taxes associated with that base digest value would go to the general funds. If there's any value growth within those districts in the future, that revenue would go to the TAD special fund rather than the general funds. So let's very quickly go through what has been proposed for the North Bypass. As you know, you've been presented with an opportunity or a request on the part of owners of two tax parcels of about 93 acres to be annexed into the city, provided that a tax allocation district is created, which would involve the, at least as a first phase, a 210-unit market rate apartment complex, which the applicants indicate that they need TAD funds to make feasible. The rest of the development of this property would occur at a later time. There's a conceptual site plan, which is hard to read for those particular parcels, but we have, again, forecast their future value based on the site plan that was presented. We've proposed this map for a tax allocation district in this part of the city, which would include annexing these two parcels known as Hammond Creek. We're proposing that you also add some undeveloped parcels in River Birch Parkway to the TAD, add the site of the Hammond Creek Middle School, and then to the southeast, there's a handful of parcels also within the city limits that could be added. And we're suggesting that these areas, the right-of-ways, the various roadways serving these parcels also be included within the district boundaries, just to give the city flexibility down the road. If there are 2,500 people living in this part of the city a decade from now, and there's a need for public improvements in roadways, you'd have the flexibility to spend TAD money in those rights of way. This particular map, which we're proposing, contains 16 parcels, a little over 200 acres. The current taxable digest, assuming again the two parcels are annexed into the city, would be about 3.6 million at 100% valuation. The county digest would be just under $1.5 million. So as a percentage of the city's total 2020 digest, it's 0.1%. Again, we did a forecast of what the future value of this area may be using these assumptions, which I won't go into in detail, and came up with the following projection. Hammond Creek, if it's built out according to the current iteration of the site plan, we believe the end value of that development could be about $124 million.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Jorge, can you get that off the screen, please?
Someone, is Mr. Woodward is requesting to enter the meeting. It's okay, he's for an upcoming item.
Thank you.
So again, we've projected that the value of the Hammond Creek site plan as currently outlined would be about $124 million, with an additional $35 million or so of potential tax base associated with the other parcels that we've proposed to include in this district. The annual property tax collections at build out, which would probably take at least a decade to achieve, would be about $2.2 million a year in total taxes, of which about 96% would be contributed to the TAD fund. So that gives the city significant flexibility to program those funds if they become available. And my screen is locked. Let me... Okay. What this would produce in terms of tax proceeds would be over a full 30 years if the TAD is maintained for that period of time and isn't dissolved sooner than that. The total proceeds over 30 years could be as high as $59.5 million. In terms of what you might be able to do with that, typically projects are financed over 20 or 25 years. It takes a long time for increment to materialize. So as a practical matter, it probably translates to something in the range of $15 million in terms of actual dollars that can be invested in infrastructure or incentives to projects. Exclusive of things like interest on debt and that sort of thing. So with a basically $15 million in resources contributed by this district. We have proposed in the redevelopment plan that those activities would be prioritized in accordance with the table on the in this slide, which would be about 55% for public improvements in infrastructure and 45% for potential incentives to projects themselves. So that's a summary of the amendment to create TAD 4. TAD 5 and a new redevelopment plan would be on West Walnut Avenue. The opportunity here is to create a vehicle of a tax allocation district to help the city fund transportation improvements to that important retail node within your city limits. The objective of these public improvements is to reduce traffic congestion and help strengthen this particular retail node within the city. I just included this graphic on this slide, which I think is kind of interesting. I went back and I looked at your local option sales tax collections countywide over the last, well, since 2008, pre-recession. And the total annual sales taxes, the 1% local option sales tax, collected in the last fiscal year ending June 30th was actually lower than it was back in 2008. The city's share of the loss has adjusted over time as your population has changed. I believe you get something in the range of 37% of that total 1% sales tax. It was about $6 million, $6.1 million last year. Your total property taxes raised were about $9 million. So lost proceeds are very important to the city. They're similarly important to the school district. And we pointed out back in 2015 that it's important for the city to invest in keeping your retail nodes strong, to keep local retail purchases in the community, encourage residents of other counties to buy merchandise here. So it's very important. The city's been studying this area, put out this plan some time ago regarding connectivity improvements in the area. We looked at the existing retail environment there. We looked at sites with potential to support both expansion of existing development and infill sites where new development could take place. We considered this in drawing the boundaries of the district, and we're proposing this district for West Walnut Avenue, which consists of about 77 parcels, 75 of which are taxable properties. It's about 128 acres. It's about $83 million in taxable digest, just under 83.1 million currently. And it's approximately just under 2.3% of the city's total digest. Because this area is largely built out, it's a little more difficult to forecast what the future may hold here as opposed to the North Bypass area. Again, just doing some realistic calculations of both developable land, which is about 24 acres of vacant land in this district, as well as forecasting potential infill development and rehabilitation of existing commercial buildings over time if the transportation improvements are done and it's successful. We forecast maybe $38.5 million of future digest could be added on top of the 80 million that's there currently, which is an increase of about 300,000 per acre over time. So with those potential resources, we forecast about, again, the potential of about $21.5 million in total TAD proceeds over 30 years, less than half of what we're forecasting off the North Bypass. Again, using the same kind of general rules of thumb in terms of what that translates to in terms of bricks and mortar construction, what you could do with it in today's dollars, it's about 5.3 million. And we've recommended a distribution kind of shown in this table, which is going to be about 50% for public improvements to the area. Again, connectivity improvements, street extensions, streetscaping, that sort of thing. and half for private incentives for private development. If both of these TADs are added to the two that exist in the city today, it's important to note that about just under 6.3% of your digest would be placed within tax allocation districts as of 12/31 of this year, which leaves you another almost 140 million below the maximum of 10%, which can be placed within of your city digest that can be placed within TADs. So again, that's just for your information. And then finally, some other items that are in the redevelopment plan. Again, under the requirements of the statute, this information has to be included. We qualify the designated redevelopment area under the statute, which sections of the statute specifically are qualified in each case. We've maintained the city council as the redevelopment agency for each of these districts, just as is the case with your two existing ones. We address in the reports how these plans are consistent with the city zoning and your comprehensive plan, as well as the Believe Greater Dalton housing strategy. We affirm the city's commitment to historic preservation, and each of these new TADs, we propose that they be established for a potential 30-year life, as the two existing ones have been. It states in the document that the city council has flexibility to use different approaches, including issuing of bonds should you choose to do so in the future, and that we are only pledging real estate increments. I am almost done, like 20 seconds. As of right now, we're only suggesting that increment from real estate taxes would be pledged to these TADs. We're not proposing to pledge personal property nor sales taxes to the tax allocation district. In each case, we've included a school system impact analysis on the city school system as required by law. And then each of these, both the...
It's in your bag from the side.
Margaret? There you go.
So that finishes my prepared remarks. I'll leave this up if anybody has questions during the hearing for either of these two districts. We can refer back to the maps.
Mr. Vaughn, is this the requirement for the city to receive public comment during this public hearing?
Anyone from the public like to comment on this? Nope. Do we take action tonight?
No, sir. This is a hearing, and at some point in the future, probably a December 7th meeting, which city will advertise, the mayor and council may consider the creation of TAD districts for a vote at that time.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Number 5's first reading of ordinance 20-16, updating chapter 6 alcohol beverage codes to provide for the home delivery of alcohol, to provide for the carry out of alcohol, to provide for tasting events, to provide for license fees, to provide an effective date, to repeal all ordinances conflicting therewith, to provide for severability and for other purposes. What are we doing here, Gandy?
This is only a first reading, Mr. Mayor. I do want to point out that this particular ordinance is authorized by state law as part of the changes during COVID-19. The governor's executive order allowed for to-go drinks and deliveries. What this does is change state law and state of Georgia Department of Revenue regulations that would allow for home deliveries of alcohol as well as tasting events. We already have some provisions in our alcohol code that allows for tasting events that was limited to wine. This would allow for other types of alcohol such as malt beverages, beer, or distilled spirits being liquors. It does set up a requirement that you can only have one tasting event per day for a maximum of 4 hours. You can only use one type of alcohol at a time. So for example, you could have a wine tasting event, but not a wine and beer tasting event. And it would be limited to 4 open brands of that particular type of alcohol at any one time. It also has to be performed in an area that's cordoned off with the general public in the store. As the wine tasting provisions basically being expanded to include the other alcoholic beverages. The home delivery section, we've set up, proposed in this ordinance, a retail and package delivery licenses. To be able to apply for one, you first have to have either a package or pouring license before you can be permitted to obtain a delivery license. The state law is very detailed in regards to how, when, and who may make those deliveries to a home residence. Those are not specifically included in this ordinance. Instead, we've referenced those as part of our ordinance. I would like to point out that the current recommendation is that would require an additional licensing fee of $500 to have a delivery license. That's discretionary by this council. That's only a recommendation. And in regards to the wine tasting, that is a permitting process, not a licensing process. So there would be no additional fee to host wine or beer or spirit tasting in our local businesses. It would be a permit that would renew automatically each year as long as you maintain your regular alcohol license. You'd be permitted to have those tastings. The deliveries, however, would require a renewal on an annual basis. That's the general coverage for that ordinance. Is there any questions about that?
Gandy, I have one question, and you may have covered it. As far as the delivery, is that only inside the city of Dalton, or can it be delivered outside the city of Dalton as well?
I would like to confirm that. My understanding is that that would be within the city limits of the city of Dalton. But I will check them later to make sure that it's a state requirement, and I'll check that for you for the night.
Mayor, Council, a couple other items to remember is that should Mayor, Council approve this ordinance change at some point in the future, the individual drivers will be required to have a certification from the Department of Revenue. And that process is underway, but not yet complete. So after passage, it may be a bit before the city is ready to participate fully in that.
If I may add one more item, Mr. Mayor, the state enacted this statutory scheme that authorizes these actions already. So the city is required to either take an action to prevent it or take an action to regulate it within our jurisdiction. So it's already in process with the state. This is our opportunity to make sure that it's done safely with the city under local ordinances rather than just by state regulation. The city does have the power to say no. We'd have to prepare an ordinance for that.
I do have a question. Like, like if you're at a restaurant and you done had too much to drink, they won't give you any more. So if they deliver and they say somebody's intoxicated, do they have the right to refuse that? Is that already in there? Or?
That is not in our ordinance. It is under the state regulations. So the state statute, as well as additional regulations that are being created by the Department of Revenue, will require exactly that. They'll have to match up IDs to make sure the person is legally able to purchase alcohol and make sure they're not serving or delivering to someone who's obviously intoxicated.
Any other questions? Next to number 6, airport, federal, and state CIP update for 2021 through 2026.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have here the updated fiscal year 22 to 26 CIP. This is required for us to update every year for the following 5 years. We're about halfway through FY21 right now. So for FY22, we've got a handful of projects. Most of the projects you see here on the CIP will be 90% federally funded, 5% state funds, 5% local match. With the exception of, we have a couple of projects on here for FY22 that we're applying for 75-25 state and local split on those to replace our automated weather observation system, which is an 18-year-old system. It's currently in need of about $32,000 in repairs. So if we get this approved, it will be replaced. The state will pay $97,500 and the local match will be $32,500. So we'll be able to replace that for the cost of the estimated repairs right now. The other is the new T-hanger apron. We've requested new hangers from the mayor and council, and this would reduce the cost of those hangers if we get approved for state funding on the grade work base and asphalt for those hangers. The state would pay 75% of that cost, which is $240,000 savings to the city. The other 3 projects would be at a 95% funding with federal, state, and local. Going forward, 23 through 26, these are just tentative projects. If the CIP is approved, this does not commit us to these projects. Rather, it just moves the process forward and the applications for the funding for FY22. We can still accept or turn down those projects when they get funded. Any other questions on that?
Questions? You need action taken tonight?
Yes, sir. I need approval of the CIP, and then there are applications for the federal and state funds for the projects listed in FY22.
Hear a motion on this?
I so moved.
Motion by Mr. Walzer, second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Next, under 7, letter of intent for airport land lease.
All right, this letter of intent expresses the mutual desire on behalf of the city and Steve Herndon to enter into a long-term land lease at the airport for the purpose of building a corporate hangar to house the aircraft of Herndon Properties LLC. Because the airport has received federal grant funds, we are subject to federal grant assurances. Grant Assurance 38 reads, if the airport owner or operator and a person who owns an aircraft agree that a hangar is to be constructed at the airport for the aircraft, at the aircraft owner's expense, the airport owner or operator will grant to the aircraft owner for the hangar a long-term lease that is subject to such terms and conditions on the hangar as the airport owner or operator may impose. The FAA further advises that the term of the lease should reflect the level of investment required by the tenant and provide the tenant sufficient time to amortize its investment. Standard airport practice for long-term leases is 20 to 35 years. The city currently has no specific provision in its charter to allow for the leasing of city property in excess of 5 years with a single 5-year extension. In order for the city to enter into a long-term lease with Mr. Herndon, it is necessary for the city to amend its charter to allow for long-term leases at the airport specifically. I'd also like the council to be aware that the city has already entered into a 20-year ground lease with a corporate entity at the airport in 2015 and a 10-year lease with an aircraft maintenance company in 2014. Therefore, an amendment to the city's charter to allow for such a long-term lease at this point is a formality. This letter describes the city's intent to amend its charter within the next 90 days to allow for this long-term lease and provides a certain level of security for Mr. Herndon to begin the process of ordering building materials and filing for FAA permits, should he choose to do so in the next 90 days.
I'm assuming the airport board has approved this.
Yes, sir.
You said that was 35 years?
A 20-year lease.
20 years.
Yes.
Any other questions? Your motion on this?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Walls, there's a second. Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 8, Resolution 20-27, authorizing acceptance of vehicle donation for the airport.
Mr. Joe Fields would like to donate a vehicle to the airport to be used as a courtesy vehicle. Mr. Fields flies in frequently to the airport and uses our courtesy vehicles for himself and his pilot. And he would like to donate this vehicle to us for that purpose. That's what this resolution would accept this donation on behalf of the city.
There a motion on this?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Walls, there's a second. Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 9, contract for services with Spartan Management LLC for 2021 through 2023 for mowing and other landscaping services at various locations within the city of Dalton. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Bids were received by the city on October 27th for the annual mowing and landscaping contracts for sites that fall under the maintenance responsibility of the Public Works Department, Dalton Municipal Airport, and Dalton Parks and Recreation. 7 bids were received. There were 4 separate bid alternates that bidders could place a low bid on. Spartan Management LLC of Ackworth was the low bidder on alternates A, C, and D. Those sites include 3 cemeteries, Dalton Municipal Airport, and 13 sites under the maintenance responsibility of Dalton Parks and Rec for an annual contract price of $125,560, which represents about a $23,000 savings as compared to the last time these contracts were bid out. These contracts are structured such that the city and contractor can mutually agree to extend them for 2 additional years. So it would be for 2021, and then we could both extend for 2022 and 2023. And the Public Works Committee reviewed these and approved them on, or made a positive recommendation for award on October 30th.
Talking about 9 and 10.
The next one, yes, sir, is for alternate B from Dilbeck Lawn and Landscaping from Dalton, Georgia. They were the low bid for this package that represents 13 sites under the maintenance responsibility of Public Works. These sites include City Hall and Public Works. The annual contract price for Dilbeck is $36,299.99, which represents a cost savings of about $2,000 compared to the last cycle that these were bid out.
Question of Andrew. Your emotion on both of these?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Goodlett, is there a second? Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 11, contract with Leonard Brothers for construction of restrooms at Brookwood Park.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council, this is a contract for construction for restrooms at Brookwood. Leonard Brothers will build us 2 stall restrooms near the new pickleball courts that are located down there. It'll get rid of the porta potties, which everybody really loves those things. And construction is planned to start on the 14th of December and completion on January 29th. Bid is approved by Recreation Commission on September 8th and contract November 10th.
Questions? Your emotion on this?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Walls, there's a second. Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. 12, approval of bid with Pyrotechnico for July 4th fireworks display.
Yes, this bid here, they were the low bid, Pyrotechnico, which basically they saved us the past couple of years with other businesses that we use that backed out on us. Their bid is $23,000. The others that were there were $25,000. Pyrotechnico being the low bidder, we'd like to accept them as the bid. And then also there's a pre-show advancement of 11.5 that will be also due in November 20th. And it was approved by the Recreation Commission on the 10th.
Any questions? Your emotion on this?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Wiles, or second? Second by Mr. Goodlett. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 13, lease agreement with TEG Enterprises, Inc. for storage space on 305 South Depot Street.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, this is a lease agreement for storage container that's located next to the Crescent City train car. This changes the lease from Friends of Crescent City to City of Dalton. And the term is for 1 year renewable.
Your motion on this? Motion by Ms. Harlan, is there a second? Second by Mr. Wall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. 14, professional service agreement for city attorney services with Gandy Vaughn. I think this is pretty self-explanatory.
Yes,
Is there
sir,
a motion
Mr.
on
Mayor.
this?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Walls, or second? Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. 15, supplemental C 2020 bond ordinance with Dalton Utilities. Who's got, you got this, Tom? Can you go over to that one over there?
Right.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Tom Bundos with Dalton Utilities. I'm asking that the Mayor and Council adopt the 2020 supplemental bond series ordinance. Do y'all need, how much information you need behind there?
What amount is it?
Okay, the bonds, we marketed the bonds today. Par value is 84 million. They're being sold at a premium, which will gross right at $100 million. We hit it out of the park as far as interest rates. The overall total interest cost of the bonds is right at 2.52%. To give you a sense of scale, when we did our 2017 bond issue, with that same figure was like 3.25. So if you look at the analysis, we hit rates at about an all-time high. The rates we issued at today were within 99.5% of an all-time low for municipal bond markets. So things went well. That's the actual supplemental bond ordinance. If the mayor and council adopts it, it authorizes you, Mr. Mayor, to sign page 4 of the agreement, which is an actual bond purchase agreement between the city/utilities and Citigroup. In exchange for the money they're going to give us, you're agreeing to sell them these instruments of indebtedness. If you actually have the supplemental bond ordinance in front of you, it's a boatload of paper, but it's really pretty simple. The first section, as I mentioned, is the bond ordinance. Section on page 2, section 4 of it authorizes you to sign. Then on page 4, you and the city clerk are to sign. Exhibit A1 shows the amounts of the bond, the interest rate, yield, and the maturities, along with the annual debt service. Exhibit A2 provides for us to have the optionality to call the bonds in a 10-year period. The volume of the paper is in Exhibit B, and it is the actual bond purchase agreement, lays out the terms and conditions by which the bond underwriter, Citigroup, is buying the bond. If you see, I think y'all have the most recent copy. On page 19, Citigroup has already signed the agreement, and if the supplemental bond ordinance is adopted by the mayor and council this evening, you, Mr. Mayor, will be the other signature on page 19.
Any questions of Tom? Your motion on this?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Cruz, is there a second? Second by Ms. Harlan. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Under supplemental business, when a song comes out about a certain, with a name in it, you always wonder who that song was written for. Well, this song came out in 1967 from the Four Tops. And now I know